All right, so let's talk about what we're trying to accomplish here with transaction auditing and activity monitor. It's really two different applications, depending on the level that you want to actually get into monitoring activity with, within either landmark applications or with S3. Now, we've been doing this for, as you see on the slide, for quite a while. We've had this application out in the market for probably 10 or 12 years. We've been doing Lawson ERP consulting since '97, so we're over 20 years doing that. And we have currently over 120 installations of at least one of the components in our compliance dashboard. It might be security reporting, it could be security auditing. Certainly these two tools, we have a lot of implementations of activity monitor and transaction auditing. So we actually have recently rolled this out for landmark as well. So we just want to kind of make sure everybody understands the differences between the products and what we're covering on S3 and covering on landmark. So briefly, and those that are new to kids or not familiar with what we do, other than the standard Lawson ERP consulting, and we've done hundreds of implementations of that, new and upgrades, we also have this set of tools for security reporting, auditing, and you might have been on a webinar earlier this week that we covered segregation of duties, security reporting, and security auditing. Today I'm going to talk about activity monitor and transaction auditing. And really, activity monitor is kind of a subset of the full auditing product. So what we're doing with the monitor is we're collecting data really at a summary level for the user, what form they've been in or what business class, if you're on the landmark side, what action they took on that form, what the key to that record was that they accessed. And on the transaction side, we go much deeper. We actually get into field level data. So to compare the two, you'll see they're actually pretty similar. Now, the big differential being on the right-hand side with transaction auditing is that we're getting field level data. So we're picking up any data changed or viewed in the S3 product at the field level. So if you want the before and after values of any data changed to Lawson on any one of the 7,000 forms, we have that information. Now we have on the S3 side, a little different than landmark, but we'll pick up all the inquiries also. So if there's a concern about who's looking at information, who's looking at certain employee records, we do get a number of questions about people doing inquiries on things they shouldn't be looking at. So not only do we track all the changes, we'll pick up all the inquiries as well. Now with the monitoring tool, there are no rules behind what we have to, what you have to define for us to pick up this activity. So again, any of the 7,000 forms or anything done through MS add-ins, we're going to pick that activity up so we know what everyone is doing in the system in real time. So this is actually, we're capturing this data as it's happening. That is also true for transaction auditing, that as soon as that transaction is submitted, we have that information. And this is on for Lawson S3. Now with transaction auditing, another difference there is that we have audit requirements on what rules we want, the things we want to audit. So when we're just monitoring the activity, it's a very small footprint, so we can pick up everything everybody's doing. But when we're picking up every field level piece of data, we actually want to have some rules behind what we're going to audit. So you can either audit by a person or you can audit by specific forms. But normally, our clients don't audit all 7,000 forms for every user in Lawson. It's just too much data to go through. But you could do it. So let's look at Activity Monitor. Now I'm going to do this as a PowerPoint, but I will get into showing you live product. But I want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what these applications provide, and then I'll show you kind of how they work. So I talked about a little bit about the fields that we provide, right? So the user, the form, the IP address, the transaction date and time, and the key to the record. So be it what employee ID, what vendor, what PO number, what journal number, whatever it might be. And on the reporting, though, we'll have a number of different ways we can provide reports for you. So you can build custom reports through our application. It's all done through the browser. There's no additional third-party products that need to be installed for this. But I'll show you how we do our grouping and filtering. Everything can be exported to Excel. We can save reports as favorites. We can put them on email notifications. So if you're looking for somebody that's working within, making a change to a certain form and you want to be notified of that, that type of activity can be tracked and notified either on an hourly basis, on a daily basis, whatever schedule you set up. So now we have two ways to show the information in Activity Monitor. First we have a screen here that'll show you based on really who's logged in right now. So I can see, and I have this for a larger date range. So I can specify a date range or specify a person, and I can do that at the top of the screen. Or I can, if it's just for today, so it normally would default of just show me who's logged into the system today. This screen was originally developed for an IT staff that wanted to know who's currently logged into the system and what are they doing. So we'll have that in descending order. So any session someone starts during the day, we'll start a new piece of activity here. So if they log in the morning, then log out for lunch, then come back in the afternoon, they'll actually be in here in 2 different sessions. You can see when the first piece of activity, the last thing they did, the last form they worked on. But then I also have a number of forms and number of transactions. So if I were to click on the 70, that'll bring me to drill down to show me which screens they worked on. With that, I get a count of how many transactions they processed on each screen. If I drill into this further, if I'm going to look at the PO20, we'll come back and give you, I can't show this full screen here, but we'll show you the 15 transactions that were done by this person on this date, right, in this session. Now, if you have transaction auditing, which I'll get to in a few minutes, where we actually have the data at the field level, when you have a details record out here on a change, if you click on the details, we'll actually pop this back and tell you what data was actually changed. So this was changed from a $10 to $130, and we'll see the different fields that would have been changed on that form. So with the monitoring application, I get to this level here, where I know every person's worked on how many different forms, which forms do they work on, which actions to the forms, and what are the keys to the record. And then, of course, transaction auditing goes a little bit deeper. Now, we actually wanted to give you them more flexibility on how you can report on this data once you have it out there. So we have a lot of information. There's a lot of things we can do with this. So on our security reporting dashboard, and even if you don't have security reporting, you'd get at least enough of it that you could get to the monitoring or the listener data down here in the right corner. And there's different things we do with this information. So the first would be, I want to see all the detail. So we're going to pull out and allow you to filter and sort based on the user, the time, the form, the action they took, maybe a certain key to a record. So if you're looking for all activity on a specific vendor, I can put that vendor ID in and we'll find every form that that vendor ID was used on, and I can do that for a particular user, so I know what user is working on, say vendor 118 on what different forms. So they did a PO, they did a vendor inquiry or a vendor change. Anything where that vendor ID is used, I can pull that activity back and see what that user was doing. Now again, we don't show the detail level at the audit level, so that if you have transaction auditing, I can tell you even what data they might have changed on that vendor screen or what data they changed on the PO. But at the monitoring level, I just know where they've been and what they've been doing. Now, with that information then, there's other things we can do that generally auditors like to know. So they want to know the last time somebody logged into the system. So because I have all this activity, I can actually tell you the last time someone logged in and worked, and I can tell you all the users in your system that have never logged in and done any work. So generally those 2 reports an auditor is going to want to have. We can also then look at this as a summary level. So as opposed to looking at every detail of every transaction, I might just want to know, are users even using the forms that they have access to? So at a summary level here, I can see the number of times a user has actually used a specific form. And out on the right, you get the number of hits. Because it's blue, I can drill into that and I can see, show me the 13 transactions on AC00.1. But we can also use this detail to compare back to your security settings. So that now I have security, if I have security reporting and I know what user, role, secure class forms they have access to, now I know what they're actually doing. So what I can do is this is actually the report that will give you the user, you'll see your user, role, security class form and what level of access they have, and the number of times they've used that form. So if we want to start tuning our security and maybe restricting access to certain forms for people, we now know whether or not they're using the form or not. And if I drill on the number of hits, that will come back and tell me how they're using the form. So maybe they're set up for all access, but they're only using it in inquiry mode. So maybe I can change security for that. So we'll actually pull the security reports together with our monitoring and tell you where are people actually using the application and what do they have access to that they never use. Right, so that's the monitoring component, and I'm going to be going through this quickly because I do want to show you some of the actual product. So now on the transaction audit side, so again, the difference here are the last two bullets, right? The field level data, and we do require you to set up audit rules. But we'll give you all kinds of ways to generate reports on this. So we define a rule with and logic between any of the fields here. So it could be a certain user, and I want to know everything F. Nelson has done on forms AP 36.1.2.3, AP 20.1.2, you see how with a wildcard. I could put specific function codes. Maybe I only want to know adds and changes. Or if you want to know everything, leave it blank. If you're trying to track things from certain IP addresses or external IP addresses, be coming in and being processed, and even at certain times. So if you want to know all activity done between midnight and 4 a.m., you can put these additional filters on the criteria. So we can define an unlimited number of these rules, and then you have retention policies on how long do you want to keep the data. So inquiries you might only want to keep for a month. The rest of the activity you might want to keep for a year, or you might want to keep it indefinitely. So once we've set up these policies, and we do deliver a number of policies with the application, about 60 or 65 pre-built policies. The reporting then, back in your browser, look back, and I can build searches a number of different ways. One of them is just it's a wildcard search where here at the top where it says advanced search, I can just put in anything I'm looking for. The user, the form name, a date, anything that's going on in the system that I want to search for, we can find. I can also do an advanced search where I can build nested criteria. So I want everything the user F. Nelson did this week on an HR form. Right, and we can build that logic up, save that report, and we'll have the ability to run that report at any time or schedule it to go out if you want a weekly report of critical changes to, maybe you want to track journal entry changes, and you at the end of the week you want to know every journal that was changed. You can just run that report and we'll give you that data. So once I get this summary level detail, then I click on the More button, and what you'll do is it'll expand out, and I'll show you the fields that change. So in this case, this journal entry changed from 1,500 to 1,700. So again, we can do this for any of the 7,000 forms on the Lawson S3 product line. So now let's talk about Landmark. So this is going to be very similar. Now, one of the differences with Landmark now is that, one, we have to have rules for both Activity Monitor, just like we did for the auditing on S3. So we're going to have rules for the monitor and what business classes do we want to monitor. And then this does require ION. So by default, Lawson will have ION running if you're CloudSuite. So that's not a problem. To run this on premise, ION has to be functional and running for processing transactions so we can capture those. That's not always the case because it doesn't have to be running if you're running on premise. So this is primarily for CloudSuite customers that want to track this activity. Right. But you're going to get very similar information then. So again, this is our dashboard for Landmark security, and we have an activity section so we can look at what's going on in the application. If I drill to that and select that option, you're going to see this looks very similar to what we have on S3, but instead of a form like AP10 or HR11, I get a business class. So I know the user or the actor, right, the business class they work on, the action they took on the form, the date and the time, and what the key to that record was. That's the information we're trying to capture then out of the Landmark side. So now I know everything that's running through Landmark and what activity is there and what a user is working on. Now, if you want to go deeper and know the detail behind that, we have transaction auditing for that. So same requirement, requires ION. Now, one of the big differences between what we're doing and what Lawson's doing, or Infor is doing, I should say, on the Landmark or CloudSuite auditing, is that they actually do keep an audit record for you on every transaction that's processed. So that's great. One of the issues that we've seen is that you need to know what record, you need to know the key to the record is to know what audit information you're looking for. So if you have a question on who changed a certain employee or who made a change to or what was changed on a certain vendor, you can look up that vendor, pull that vendor up, you can go to the audit log, and you can see the audit trail of everything that's happened on that vendor, which is great. The concern is that I can't just run a report and say, show me everything Dan Kinsey did today. I have to know what vendor I was in, I have to know what PO I was in, I have to know what invoice I was in. You'd have to know the exact data you're looking for to be able to find the audit record. if you want to just know what has somebody been working on during the day, or show me anybody that's changed a vendor today, you're certainly not going to go through every one of your vendors looking for that data. What we're doing on the reporting side is we're allowing you to, we'll pull all that data for you, and if you just want a report of everything that happened today, everything Dan Kinsey did today on any transaction in the system, we'll pull that data out. So you don't have to know what record you're looking for to find the audit record. You just have to build your own criteria of what you're looking for. So again, that's going to look very similar to what we did on S3. So this report was probably just show me everything that happened in the system, maybe for a specific date range, and we're going to pull all that back. I didn't have to know that it was, a certain user. Well, you never have to know the user, but you have to know which business class you want to look at and what record class. So what vendor did you want to find? We don't have to know that. We just want to know, well, we'll pull out that data. If you want to audit vendors, just tell us you want to audit vendors. We'll pull that data for you, and you can report across any time frame, any user, any record. It wouldn't matter. Right? And that's kind of one of the big differences between how Lawson or Infor reports on that and how we report on that. So you can see here now, same kind of option where I have the summary, and if I drill into more detail, that'll come back and show me at the detail field level what actually changed. So I'll get before and after values on any of this data. All right, so let's talk briefly about the implementation. Generally, we can put this product in probably 2 days. We always say 3. It's going to be a 2 to 3 day process. We do a remote installation. Training for these really takes generally less than a half a day. I mean, I usually build in a day to do it, but for these 2 applications, we can do this training in just a couple of sessions and show you all the functionality on how they work. It's just a matter of showing you how to build a rule and how to actually start generating reports. So it's a pretty simplified implementation. Again, all done remote. It's not intrusive to your IT department or to your users. And because we're really, if you're in the CloudSuite, we're not doing anything in the cloud. That's one of the differences. We can't, Lawson will not, or Infor will not allow us to, which is understandable. We actually reach in and pull this data out. So there's no application or no code that actually goes on any of your servers in the cloud. Let's look a little bit at how some product here. So I'm going to start out with, we'll go and make sure I'm on, let's go to LS reporting real quick. And I'll just show you how we get access to some of this data. So down here I have this user form detail. So now there's another ways I can filter. If I'm just looking for something for a particular user, I can put in the user name or user ID and pull that data out. You can build a list of the users out here in your system that have activity and select which users you want, similar to what we showed a few days ago on our reporting for security. Let's go ahead and just run it wide open. You have date and time options as well. And I'll just go ahead and run this report. Now this is within S3. So I have everything that's happened within S3. I could have put a date and time range in because you could have millions of records like some of our customers do. And we'll have customers that pick up to 80,000 transactions a day. I'd say the norm is probably 30 or 40,000 transactions a day. But we do have customers that go significantly higher and get into that 80 to 100,000 transactions. And the reporting is still fine, right? Where there's no system degradation, there's no impact to the users at all. Quite honestly, if there was, nobody would run the product because we cannot impact the performance of what's going on in your environment. Now I can do things here where this reporting we have, I can group this by user, and I can see the number of transactions F. Nelson worked on. There's 384. I can see the function codes. But I can further group this and filter this. So maybe I want to run the forms that F. Nelson worked on, 27 different forms. But maybe I only care about the change function code. So I'll say, in function, I want to change it. And I'm down to F. Nelson has made changes on 8 different forms. On an AP 20.1, there's 4 changes. And out here to the right, I can see on the invoices what invoice records they worked on, the vendor and the invoice. You get the invoice number. On AP 10.1, there's vendor group 1 and vendors 102, 107, and 118. And these are changes. But you notice I did have, if I cleared this filter, we did have all inquiries also. So if I actually group this up by function, now I have how they're using it. So I can see, well actually let me go function form, and now I can group F. Nelson has done 8 changes, and these are the 8 forms they did changes on. and there's the 4 changes to AP 10.1. They've done inquiry on 10 forms, and I can see an AM 90.1. Those are the 2 inquiries. So you kind of see how I can group this, sort this, filter this, and export this data at the summary level to Excel or to PDF, so you can use this information. So that's the activity monitor. Now you see my other options down here. This was the user form detail. I just showed you the user form summary was just that form where it's going to come back and tell me how many times the user used that form. I can group this by form, and I can tell you what users are using that form, F. Nelson and Lawson, and how many times they used them each. If I drill on this, I get to the detail. I can show you the 12 pieces of activity that applied for Lawson on AC or AC 10.1. So a lot of ways of grouping and sorting and filtering this data, but we can really see who's using what in the application, again, in real time. If I go back to Activity Monitor here, this is the screen that'll show you who's currently logged into the application. And I'll have to change some dates here because I don't have a lot going on here. If we just go back to 18. And here's my activity, and here's the 70 that we looked at before. I come down, I see these 15. I can go across and see this change record, and I see the detail that was changed. So just like the PowerPoint, but I see this activity now. I can filter by the dates at the top or a specific user that I'm looking for. And I just want to see all of S. Miller's activity for basically the year. Right? So I have those 22 transactions on 7/12. Here's the records they worked on, and I can expand out and see what employee record. That was an inquiry on record 164. So those are the 2 different ways I can look at this monitoring data. Now, let me go back here. I'll show you the transaction. So if I go into transaction auditing, we have this ability to save. Once you build a report, you can save the report, put it on a schedule. So if you're trying to monitor certain activity for people or for forms, you can put this on a schedule and get a report via email, every day or every hour or every week, whatever you like. But I've got a couple of things defined here. So if I will look at changes to the vendor terms. So I've saved this report, and this comes up and shows me the field term code changed from immediate to net zero. Now to build this, all I really have to do, if I go to advanced search, I told it I want the field name equals vendor term code. And in this case, I just want to know that the value has changed. So I don't have to know what I'm changing to. I don't have to know anything about who did this or when it was done. All I want to know is that value has changed. You can also do things where it's like, if it's a dollar value, you can say where the field, that value is greater than, right? So if somebody changes the credit limit and the credit limit field and the value is greater than $100,000, maybe you want to watch that, right? Or employee pay rate has got changed to a number that is out of your range. Maybe you want to it probably is a mistake, you want to watch that. So all I have to do is know the value, in this case, the value has changed, and I'll run the report, and I'll get 8 times when the vendor terms code has changed. I'm going to get the data, who did it, the whole deal. Now, we can also do some searches through here. Let me go to this journal entry change report. I'll hide this a little bit, make this a little bigger, and you see these are all my changes to the journal entry. So I'm only looking for changes, even though I could have done any function code. But I might want to know more about what's going on in here. So one is you can just expand more, and you can see exactly what the change was. So here's went from 0 to 200, and it threw off my total. Right? So that was a change on that line. But I might want to know what else a user has done on a particular date. So if I go to if I hold the control key down and highlight 529 for Lawson and right click, I'm going to show me everything Lawson did on 529. And that's going to pull back all my forms. Well, you know what? I want more specific. I want 529 Lawson, and I only want changes. So I'm going to highlight those fields. And I'm opening another browser page and drilling down through this detail, knowing that I'm looking for certain types of information. So now I see this user was in an HR11, GL40, AP20. It doesn't matter where they were in the system. I know every change and every record they were on and what their change was. And if I want to see what was done on this HR11 record, I can scroll down here, probably have a new value, possibly. No, it's in here somewhere. There's a lot of fields in HR. Actually, I can change it to advanced search and tell it to only show me the changes Now I can see if I can get something here. Yeah, so this is the case where the employee pay rate was changed from 112,000 to 113,000. So I can filter this down to just show me the data that changed. It's a change record, so we have all the detail. I just want to see the data that changed. So we can do similar things within the landmark side, and I could have also taken this and told it, you know what, I want to export this at the summary level. If I export the detail that I'm showing on the screen here, I'm going to get all the fields. Well, maybe I just want to see the summary level. So we'll allow you to drill over to your activity monitor on this. We'll pull this detail up. Now I have the same records at a summary level. Now if I export to Excel, I can just go in and research these without having all the detail and the data behind it. So we'll give you this ability to export the detail, whatever you want to work with. Now this filter also, if I go to Activity Monitor, another advantage here is that, again, you may not audit all 7,000 forms. So I may pick up that the user Lawson on 529 did 30 transactions because those are the only forms I'm monitoring. But if I want to go back to Activity Monitor, that will show me that he worked on 70 forms that day. But I might not be auditing every one of those forms, but I will see all of their activity. So you could actually get more records on the Activity Monitor side because we've set up specific audit requirements for transaction detail, but again, I get everything on the monitoring. Then lastly, what I want to show you here is if I jump over to, let me close these out, we're going to see very comparable information. Let me go to my landmark server, and I get landmark reporting here. And if I say all changes this year, and I have a saved report, you can see here similar information. Now I've got, instead of having I have a business class called vendor, or one called employee, or one called buyer, right, versus an AP10 or an HR11. But it's the same type of action. It was an update, the keys to the record. I have all the same search capabilities, so I can say, show me everything Mike did on 5.2, right click. I'll see all the activity for 5.2 for Magnica that I'm auditing. Remember, I have to be auditing that data, but I know what else he's done. And then, so we have the same options here on saving reports. You can save them. Again, I can email this by just saying, create a schedule on this. I want to send an email notification. I'm going to send it out every month, and I'm going to send it out to the audit group, and I'm going to send it in PDF and save it. And now I have a scheduled report that will go out once a month based on the criteria that I've built into this search. And then you have something similar back on the landmark security reporting dashboard. Looks like this. And if I go to my activity here, I'm going to have the activity for everything that's going on inside Landmark. So again, we define what we want, which business classes, what we want to track activity for, and I'm going to give you the action, the user, the date and the time, and the key to that record. So that's what these two applications are doing, right? One is kind of a summary level, the monitoring application. Transaction auditing will go much deeper into the data. You could, in fact, just pick up monitoring, and on the landmark side, you can kind of go back and find that data if you want to look at one record at a time. On the S3 side, that data really doesn't exist. So Infor's done a nice job of adding some functionality to landmark, but we think the reporting could benefit you a little bit more if you had the ability to do these ad hoc searches and just pull all that information in without going to individual records to see what was changed. That's really what I want to show you for the day. Again, we're going to be in a forum, and let me get back. You can contact Guy Henson if you have any questions, if you want to have a follow-up demo. Again, I'll put this recording, make it available, and we're going to post it on our website in the next few days if you want to share it with your group. So certainly feel free to reach out to us. Guy's phone number is there on the screen, and I'll have the PowerPoint available too, and you'll be able to find that on our website too, probably under recorded webinars. So we're right at 1:34. That's my half hour. Thank you for attending, and everybody have a great day.